You know how I always say that speaking is the fastest way to grow your business? Well, today I'm pulling back the curtain and giving you a front row seat to what it actually looks like to work with me one on one. I'm sitting down with a former client of mine, Grant Vermeer, who came to me when he was asked to give a 20-minute speech that was 2.5 weeks away. He had something to say, but he had no clue where to start. And maybe you will hear a little bit of yourself in this story. The nerves, the pressure to sound polished, the fear of falling flat, not knowing exactly what to put in your presentation, or maybe trying to put too much in your presentation. So, in this conversation with Grant, we are going to dive into the real coaching process, his aha moments, the tough love, and the mindset shifts of what happens after the speech that neither of us expected. And if you've ever wondered, could I actually do this? This episode is your answer because your audience is waiting. And yes, you have a story worth sharing. Let's get on to the show. Grant, it has been too long. Thank you so
Wow.
much for coming onto the show. I have been dying to catch up with you and just to share you with my audience also. So before we even get started, can you share with people who you are and what you do and and also like what your podcast is?
First of all, thank you so much for having me on. This is so exciting for me. I have chased the shiny object syndrome, so I'm sorry we've been have been apart from each other now for a couple months as I was working on a project that I really love. It's for the military community. But yeah, my name's Grant. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, ended up making my way to the Naval Academy, which was a really formative experience for me on a couple of different factors, just my own personal development. It's also where I met my wife. And you ask who I am, like I'm a spouse. I'm a military spouse. I love my wife and I love supporting her career as a naval officer and as an aviator. And so I've had a fun time trying to build a business that it works with that, that is sustainable with that. And so for me, that has been building a podcast all about the Naval Academy community. It's a community I care deeply about. It's something that I have insight knowledge about and just have an ability to provide a lot of perspective and context to help educate family members, prospective students, and everyone about the midshipman experience in Annapolis. And that's been so fun. And I do that really as a passion project. And I'm sure we'll get into it more as a strategic piece of my overall business because my actual for-profit business is in the real estate world. I spent multiple years as a real estate agent. Now I run a real estate consultation and referral business, trying to make sure people are getting connected to really high-end top professionals across the country. And so that's what I'm doing right now. And I love it.
Thank you. You have such a fascinating career path so far. So let's start with how did you get this first speaking event that compelled you to reach out to me?
Yeah. It's been, sometimes I feel like this imposter syndrome, like, oh my gosh, how did I get this first event? Then I realized I've been building something for years. It's been a lot of hard work. It's been a lot of hard work. For me, it's been all about building community. And so one of the things that I've done with Academy Insider and that I've really loved is this idea of being an educator, being a guide for the moms and dads with midshipmen, for the parents, the family members, what I've dubbed as like the support squads for midshipmen who are going through the Naval Academy experience. And at the Naval Academy, there are groups known as parents clubs all across the country that are kind of broken out regionally. And as a result of the podcast, as a result of years of sharing my story and my experience and helping family members understand the midshipman experience and better be able to love and support their son or daughter, whoever it is going through the academy, I had a parents club reach out to me last year about coming to speak at what is known as the Welcome Aboard event. So for all of the high school seniors that will be showing up to the Naval Academy that following year for their plebe year, their freshman year, I was asked to come and speak and provide a little bit of insight, wisdom, guidance, and just general advice for the incoming class and incoming families. And that's how I kind of landed my first speaking gig.
Fantastic. What I love about that story is you were just doing what you do best. And then somebody came along and said, "Hey, can you come over here and share some of this information?" I got the perfect audience.
Yes, that's exactly it. I really just thought I was a blogger and a storyteller, just having fun, kind of reflecting on my experience, right? I was early in my journey. I wouldn't have considered myself an entrepreneur. I really just thought I was just like having fun, sharing stories. And, again, a big thing for me, like really my identity that I really try and hold is this idea of being a man for others. Part of my Jesuit Catholic faith, I hold it really dear to me. And so I was like, this is a perfect avenue to do something fun, but that will give back to a community I really care about and hopefully help a lot of families understand the journey. And really for me, that's all it was at the start. And then again, like you're saying, I had opportunities open up as a result of everything that I was doing, just kind of in that niche.
Yeah. Beautiful opportunities. Okay. Before you reached out to me and they had already said, "Hey, Grant, can you come and speak?" What was your biggest fear?
My biggest fear was so as you may be able to tell right now as I'm talking, I'm not a quiet person. It wasn't like necessarily getting up in front of the stage wasn't necessarily the piece that was most frightening to me. Although I will say, as much as I think I have a kind of a boisterous, charismatic personality. Getting up in front on a stage still gives me butterflies in the stomach, right? It's not like it's not like it's just like, oh yeah, no, I love it. No, it's scary. It's nerve wracking. But I think for me, and it's part of my personality, my wife, it will probably be the first one to tell you is I put a lot of pressure on myself, right? Like I want to be perfect in everything I do. I want to present in a really professional, really polished way in everything that I do. And so for me, kind of my biggest fear going into this is my first event. Like this is going to set the stage. This is going to be the thing that will hopefully open up a new avenue for me. I need to be great, right? I need to be excellent and I need to provide a ton of value to this group that I'm going to talk to. And so that was the biggest thing for me was I was like, all right, well, how do I do this? Right? How do I do this in a way that really does achieve all of those things that I want it to do. And so for me, that was kind of the scariest piece was walking in knowing and I have no idea how I'm supposed to do this. I just know that I need to do it. And so that was what it was for me.
Okay. So you reached out to me.
Mhm.
Why did you reach out to somebody who helped people write speeches?
Because you have an incredible presence. Because you, again, I've listened to the podcast multiple times. My dad has listened to the podcast multiple times. And
Sad
it was
face.
one I let, right. And, my dad and I were sitting, we're talking, and it's so impressive in what you do in terms of your branding and your reputation building, right? And it's something that I try and tailor for my real estate business, which is when someone says, "Oh, when it becomes relevant in their life to want to buy or sell a home, I want their first thought to be, I need to reach out to Grant." Right. And I think what you do so well was exactly this. It was before we even needed a speech, funny enough, like we followed your podcast. We followed your presence on these different things. And so as soon as writing a speech became relevant in our life, developing a signature speech became relevant in our life, it was like, we have to reach out to Laurie-Ann. Like that, it was the first thought. And that's kind of how it works for us because I think we kind of knew maybe, and I say we again, my dad's my biggest advocate, supporter, and almost operations guy in this whole thing, which I love. My dad has a job. My dad worked, but I swear if he was born 30 years later, this idea of being a modern age entrepreneur for him would be like the dream, right? And so
Sure.
he loves getting to work on this stuff with me. And so I think we knew speaking was a possibility in the future and this idea of developing a signature speech and being a part of these events. So again, you were on our radar more or less just from general things. And then again, when it became relevant, it was automatic, easy to be like, we got to reach out to Laurie-Ann and we got to make this happen.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So one thing that I remember is I remember my comment to you. It was just like, all right, when is this speaking event? And you gave me a date. And it was 2.5 weeks later. It's
Weeks.
like, could you have waited any longer?
Yeah, for being in the military, punctuality, not my strong suit. You would think they would have fixed that in me. But again, I think, and, sometimes operating in these early realms, in these early stages, the Paris Club didn't reach out to me until 2.5 weeks beforehand. Right. And so these are some of the things that are really interesting because when you're trying to get your start, you know, people aren't booking you out 6 months in advance to speak when you haven't spoke before, right? And so I think that was a really interesting realization for me. Again, a little more tidbits about Grant Vermeer. In my off time from when I'm not busy enough already, I moonlight as a college basketball referee, right? And it's something that I love doing. And again, in order to advance, to go from Division III basketball to Division II basketball to Division I basketball, A lot of times you just have to get lucky and have an opportunity that pops up on very short notice, right? You have someone who is injured or get sick, and you get a call from someone that's like, hey, I know you don't normally work at this level, but we need you. Can you get there today? And you need to be prepared. You need to be ready, right? And so it was a very similar thing, which is, again, unfortunately, I was like, all right, this is a really short timeline, but I have an opportunity. And so, like, how am I going to be prepared and ready to go? And again, I'm sorry to have put the time crunch on you, but we needed to make it happen. And I'm
And
just so grateful to your support in doing it.
yeah, you worked hard. I remember us when we had a sales call and I like, all right,
Hmm.
here are the options.
Hmm.
And we'll have our follow-up sales call. You made a decision like that night. And I said, okay, instead of a follow-up sales call, that will be your first call. And we just went to work hard. And, like normally it's 12 coaching sessions over the course of 6 months, but like I actually don't care how often they use them. And so
Sure.
we used like several of them, like weekly, if not twice a week, to get
Mhm.
it done. But you worked hard for that 2.5 weeks to really, really do an outstanding job.
Thank you. Yeah, it was like you're saying, it was twice a week there for a while to build the speech and then practice it and give it a couple times in front of you. And that's always scary when you have a 15-minute speech that you've had to write, memorize, and recite multiple times to get ready to go. And it was certainly something.
Mm.
Definitely
Yeah,
something.
you did a good job. And mom and dad were in the audience. I loved that. But tell everybody what happened afterwards when you stepped off the stage.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. Again, for someone who likes the media feedback or wants to do a good job and provide value, it was really special because the moment I walked off, the organizer of the event came up to me and said, "That was the best speech that we've ever had at this event. Can I book you right now for next year?" And that was really special. And I did. I went this past May and I gave the exact same speech to the North Texas Parents Club in Dallas, Texas. And it was amazing, right? And it led to another one. I actually had multiple parents clubs reach out to me this past year to speak at their event. Again, kind of how it works is usually they're on the same day or within the span of 3 weekends. So I can't be everywhere, but I was able to 2 back-to-back weekends. I spoke at the North Texas Parents Club again, and also the Southern California Parents Club this year. Gave the speech twice, and they went incredible. And so I'm just like so grateful that it's continued to give me an opportunity and a stage and a presence to be able to impart a little bit of advice to the incoming midshipman families.
Yeah, yeah. I'm always a big fan of you just never know who's in the audience who can hire you for something else. They start following you and learning from you. And it's like, you know what? I bet he's got another speech. But this also brings up a really important point of, last year we worked together on this one signature speech for this particular 15-20 minute talk. And you got asked to come back, and I love how you said, "I gave the same talk," because it's different people in the audience, but it's amazing how you can use the same speech again and again and again, and it must have
Mhm.
been I bet you it had to have gotten a little bit better, especially when you're doing it 2 weekends in a row.
I think significantly better. And I think what's really interesting to your point is I was able to tailor it, right? It provides a structure that I was able to make small adjustments based on where I was going and what was happening in the world. And I think this is really interesting. I don't want to take up all your time, and I'm so sorry about this, but it's really interesting because I had three main tenets of the speech, which is this idea of the power of the midshipman experience, the adventures of a junior officer, and the power of the Naval Academy Network. When we were going through this period, the first weekend, even this past summer, this first weekend, I gave this speech and I talked all about the adventures of a junior officer, all the fun, the travel. Again, you hear the phrase, join the Navy, see the world, getting to go to all these different places, doing all this cool stuff, all this amazing stuff. It's exciting. It's fun. I love talking about it because it was a fun part of my life. In between the first weekend and the second weekend, Israel launches missile strikes into Iran, and Iran responds and launches missile strikes into Israel. But this is happening the week between the two speeches. I was supposed to be flying to Vietnam. I was supposed to give this speech on Saturday afternoon and fly to Vietnam on Saturday evening to go visit my wife on a port visit. She's currently deployed on an aircraft carrier out in, again, now the Middle East, but was in like the South China Sea in the Pacific area. That's where she was at. They were supposed to pull into Vietnam. I was getting ready to fly out and visit my wife. I was so excited. On Friday, my wife calls me and says, do not come to Vietnam. We like, we're not going to be there. Port visit canceled. New tasking, all ahead flank as fast as you can get to the Middle East to be off the coast of Iran. And, in that moment, I was super scared, right? I was nervous. I knew my wife was nervous and I knew my in-laws were super nervous. But the conversation that I had with my wife was that, who else is nervous? For sailors. And you know who else is afraid? The mom and dad of those sailors. And it is my wife's responsibility and job as a naval officer to take care of them, to love them, and to lead them in combat. And so I went into that speech the next day on 1 day notice, and I changed the speech from the power of the midshipman experience and the adventures of a junior officer to the power of the midshipman experience to be ready for the responsibility of being a junior officer. And that was a huge shift because I was able to come in and be responsible. And it was no longer about the fun of world travel and all this stuff, but it was about the fact that the midshipman experience, the Naval Academy experience is brutally hard. It is a grind because when you get out there and that moment happens where you are sick to your stomach, scared because you're going towards war, it is that way because you are going to have to handle your own emotion, your own fear, and take on the burden of your sailors. It is your responsibility to love them, to take care of them, and to lead them. And so that was this incredible arc for me in this speaking journey as well, because I was able to take something and make it a living document, right? Like, it wasn't just the same speech. It was able to be tailored based on world events and what was going on personally in my life and make it really relevant and really resonate with this audience. And so
That,
for me, that was a really interesting kind of experience.
that is so beautiful. To take your speech and really customize it, not just for this audience, but also for the state of the affairs, what actually is going on, and also like what was going on with you. But I love the advice that you gave your wife. That is just so beautiful. And it's the power of being a really good speaker is to be able to change it on a dime to serve your audience. Not to just give like, but this is the speech that I'm supposed to give. A lot of times like people can get blinders on and it's like, no, 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 like we need something different. But when we booked you to speak, we didn't know we needed something different. So that just speaks like kudos to you to being that's acting like a professional speaker.
I appreciate that. Thank
That
you.
is awesome. Make sure you get testimonials, by the way. Hey, the other thing, let's go back to like our work together. What surprised you about working with a speech coach?
The amount of reflection, right? I think what was actually really interesting, I think I was expecting early on, like, you're just going to tell me what to do. You're like, all right, I'm here. I'm paying for you. Like, write the sucker for me. You know what I mean? And I think what I loved and what was most interesting was it was very, and you are very intentional in how you are. You are very real and authentic. When you ask questions, you mean it, right? And you can feel it. And so for me, it was a really almost therapeutic, reflective exercise working with you because you asked a lot of really important questions. You asked a lot of questions about me. You asked a lot of questions about the impact I wanted to make on the audience and how that was going to drive the message of the speech. And so there were a lot of cool things that I really enjoyed about the experience. But I think what I loved most was that it forced me to be very honest with myself and very reflective of like, what is the outcome? What is the goal? And then how are we going to make that happen with your guidance? And that was really fun because again, I think I assume early on it's like, oh, you're just gonna like, I'm gonna talk to you and you're gonna here's your speech, right? And it wasn't that way at all. And I love that because again, I think that education, that experience is what allowed me to change it on a dime, right? Because it provided the framework necessary for me to be thinking about the things that I should be considering.
That's so funny. You thought I was gonna write your speech. The very first person that ever asked me, I mean, I this is what brought me into the online world and to change from speaking about leadership to speaking about basically communication, is somebody sent me a text that said, "Laurie-Ann, do you write speeches for people?" And the answer was no, because then you have to memorize what I wrote. But, like, every client that I work with, nobody is cookie cutter because everybody's story is different. Everybody's goals for speaking is so different. So thank you for sharing that, for making me laugh, but also, like, for understanding, like, the process and having that sort of a framework so that you're right, like, you can write another speech. You
Mhm.
can just change it on a dime because you needed to.
Yeah.
That was fun. And yeah, it can be very, to use your word, therapeutic. Like you're learning a lot about yourself, about like, why do I want to speak? What is my story? Pulling out the nuggets of your story. And for everybody, it's different.
Yeah. 100%.
Were there any funny moments of working together?
I mean, a ton. I feel like we were just cracking up the whole time, always. Again, I feel like in retrospect, again, when you're at the Naval Academy, when you're going through it, it's not funny. It doesn't feel funny at all. But when you go back and you reflect on these things and like tell these stories to you, and I'm like, I want to tell this story, I want to tell this story. It's so ridiculous, it's hilarious. Like I love every bit of it. And so getting to work with you and share stories and realize, you know, what stories work in a speech, what stories have an air that will make the audience laugh, that are fun, that will relieve some of the tension, that aren't overly long, that are you're able to hit the point. And I think those were all like incredible things. That I think what was most for me is I really remember literally breaking down and crying on one of the calls with you. And so it was less about even like the humor and funny of our experience necessarily. Although again, I love working with you. It's a very pleasant experience. And I think we laugh and we have fun. The power of your experience was the reflection. Like there were times where again, you really made me think and feel and be honest and reflective as we were discovering things that were really important to me that literally moved me to tears. And so, like, those were the kind of experiences that I will always remember. Like, it was a really powerful experience to really work through and navigate how I really feel about things and what is most important to me, and what kind of things I want to share with the world, right? Like what my story is and what I want to kind of express to other folks. And that's honestly what I remember most out of our time working together.
Yeah, we definitely had a really good time working together. I enjoyed working with you and just, I remember saying to you, I wish I had joined the Naval Academy. You just the way that you were sharing, like, even the hardness,
Mhm.
how difficult it was, but you still did it, and how it has shaped who you are today, and that is what you were trying to share with that audience, that what you're about to do is so hard. I recently heard somebody talking about the 75 hard, that I don't wanna call
Oh
it
yeah.
fitness regimen.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll call it a fat, but he said, "You're not doing it for who you are today, you're doing it for later, the person
Mhm.
you're gonna become," he said, "so that when things do get difficult in your life," because he's like, "It's not a diet, it's not a fitness program, it's like a personal development program." He's like,
That's real.
"When you go through something hard, you're gonna be able to remember, like, I did that. I'm a different person and I can do hard things." And hearing you talk about, like, how grueling the academy is,
Mhm.
what prepares them for, like, what your wife is doing right now with them.
Yeah. I love it. I'm gonna take that. I think I may submit a request to the U.S. Congress to change the name of the school from the U.S. Naval Academy to the 1350 hard. You know what I mean? Just like four full years, 4 full years of hard. Yeah, I think it may work with the young generation. Get them in there.
It might, yes.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about the mindset shift from the like, I'm nervous about doing this. I want to make sure that this is perfect. I do a good job too. I've got this.
Mhm. I don't know that I had that feeling on the first one. Look, I was in my hotel room the night before looking at that sucker, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, we're gonna maybe make this thing happen." No, I think when I got up there, and I think again the first time giving it, it was actually when I got up on the stage and I got ready to give my first like talk.
Yeah.
Right? And it was the opening line that, like, made me feel when I said it, I was like, "I got this." Because I had said those words and those numbers so many freaking times over the past X number of days, right? And I was nervous about the whole thing when you put in 15 minutes, but when you compress it down to, like, 13,476 midshipmen applied to the Naval Academy, right? Like, when I got to that boom, the first number, I was like, okay, I got this. Because each piece of it just flowed, right? Like I knew when I was here, it was like, all right, I'm here. Like this many people applied to the academy, this many people got in, and this many people actually said yes. Right. You are a part of the elite of elite. That is 7.9% of people that ended up actually getting into the Naval Academy. And once that happened, it was like I felt I was able to go because I knew I had the audience. At that point, when you hear the audience go pin drop silent, you're like, all right, I got this, right? Like I'm in control now. And so for me, it was that way. And again, I think onto the, you know, further on time getting it, I felt that level of confidence and smooth even before like going into it because I knew it was going to go well. But the first time, it was really like upon the first 10 words that I was like, okay, I got it. Right, I got that. And so that's what it was for me.
And I don't remember exactly how you wanted to open the speech, but I remember like how many people applied. I remember asking you that. How many people apply? How many people? Because we, the goals that you had set for in the foundation of our speech together. Like here's what I want to get out of this, but here's what I want the audience to get out of this. And I was like, but in your audience are parents and also
Mhm.
students. And we need to make them feel like, wow, that's what I'm a part of. I'm a part of 7%. You're right, the elite of the elite. I wanted your parents to feel oh so proud of their child and
Yeah.
for that like the student to be like, "Oh my god, like I had no idea." I really feel like that line just grabbed your audience
Mhm.
right from the beginning. And knowing exactly what you're gonna say, this is the reason why I tell people you want to memorize your opening and your closing. You can, you had a short presentation, so you really did have to write and memorize it in a
Mhm.
way that sounded very conversational. But in a typical 60-minute speech, I would tell people memorize the beginning, memorize the end, the stuff in the middle, you can just have bullets if you want. But that's why, is so that you know exactly what you're going to say, and that's when the butterflies just settle down. Bravo.
Thank you. Thank you.
What would you say to somebody who's listening right now, who's thinking of like, I was been thinking of booking a call with Laurie-Ann, thinking
Mhm.
of even adding speaking as their best form of marketing. What would you say to what's the advice you'd give to somebody?
Do it. No, I believe in the power of action, right? I believe in the power of momentum and moving, right? And I think I just had a podcast interview the other day with a Naval Academy grad, an older guy. Like he was, he's I think he was class of like 70 something. I mean, he's 50 years out of the Naval Academy. He's had an entire career in the Navy Marine Corps, his entire career and all this different stuff. He made it very clear that closed mouths don't get fed. Right. And again, it was a lesson to take into a lot of different things and into networking, into relationships, into your professional career, into all these things. You have to ask for help. And I think working with you is actually as funny as it may feel, it's like it's an ask for help. It's an ask for guidance. It's saying that I want to achieve something and I'm going to put the right people on my team in order to make it happen. And so I think there's that first movement of just taking action. And, I work, I think it's a military thing in me. I work in phrases, little ditties, little things that I can repeat over and over again. Closed mouths don't get fed. Motion creates emotion, right? And so this is the thing for me. And motion creates momentum, however you want to talk it. But like taking that first step is what is going to move you in the right direction and get you like pushing in the right direction. It's going to give you optimism. It's going to get you hope. You're going to have your first breakthrough. You're going to start to feel more confident. You're going to realize when you have a signature speech, you now have LinkedIn content. You have Instagram content. You now have an ability to go on a podcast and bring things up, knowing I have a structure of my thoughts that I want to do. It's not just the speech. If you were to look on my LinkedIn today, half of my posts are just excerpts from the speech. And you just copy and paste them in there, dude. Right? Like it's incredible. Like it just gives you a framework of what's important to you, the impact you want to impart on a certain audience. And then you have that for every single thing you do. So I would say working with Laurie-Ann, it's not just a speech. It is an entire framework of your communication, of your message, of your reputation that you want to have that you can copy and paste into all these different things. And plus of a copy and paste, more we're talking about like really a confidence to be able to change it on a dime, right? And know how you want to do it because you have that. And working with you is working with the best in the game. It's working with an expert who's going to be able to lead you and guide you on that experience.
Oh, thank you so much for all of that. And is there any other piece of advice that you want to give people that are listening about speaking, about sharing your story, sharing your message? Any?
Yeah. It's all about the impact you want to leave. I couldn't be more. Yeah, it is exciting. I read a book recently. Sorry, I'm a storyteller. I'm sorry. I read a book recently, Wealthy and Well Known. It's an incredible book. I heard the author talk on Pat Flynn's podcast. It led me to read it, right? Again, power of a podcast and be able to get on there and tell your story. He has a really interesting take, right? He's like, I hate this term personal brand, right? It feels a little transactional. It feels a little businessy. I love this idea of reputation because at the end of the day, like when someone says the word Laurie-Ann or someone says the word Grant, the first thought that pops into someone's head, that is your reputation. And the power of speaking, the power of having a podcast, the power of having a public presence on social media in a really professional forum is you have the ability to formalize and digitize your reputation. Because if you're able to go onto a podcast and talk about the things that are really important to you, you have the ability to make consistent posts about the things that are important to you and what is going to make an impact on your audience. You have the ability to create your reputation and to reinforce it constantly. And so like, this is the power of everything when you're going into it. Again, it just goes back to, it's not just a speech. It's the ability to build your reputation day in and day out, where everyone knows that you are the person who does X, or you are the person who is Y, right? Like, I just want at the end of everything that I do, whether it's speaking again as a guest on your podcast, or it's it's an actual speaking event or whatever it is. Like, I want people to be like, oh yeah, Grant's the real estate guy, and Grant just cares about the military community.
Yeah.
Right. If those are the two things that people say when they like my name gets brought up, like, then I'm doing my job right. Right. Then that makes me happy. And it's a long way to say, as you're thinking about going on this journey, it's not just the speech. Working with Laurie is not just creating a speech. It's this journey to building your reputation in the public forum. And I just think it's a really powerful thing that you can do. And I'm just a big advocate for it and recommend it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all that. And the great advice for people. And I'm going to have to go check out that book. So Grant, before we close, can you just share with people where they can find you, follow you, and learn from you?
Yeah. LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I'm a LinkedIn junkie. I'm just Grant Vermeer on LinkedIn. I would love if you followed me there, connected, shot me a message. It would be so much fun. If you have any interest in the military, the Naval Academy, shoot a question. It's what I do. It's my passion project. I post a lot about real estate and I post a lot about, the military community. And so those are the things that I love doing. You can also check out my nonprofit, www.academyinsider.com, or just go onto your main podcast streaming service that you like and type in Academy Insider. again, it's been a long journey, but we'll be the first podcast that pops up. And, would love to have you take a listen there. And that kind of stuff would make me really happy. And, feel free to reach out at any time.
So, how about that for transformation? That is the power of one on one coaching. It's not about perfection, it's about clarity, confidence, and showing up like the expert that you already are. So, if listening to this has made you think, "Hmm, I want that kind of support," then let's talk. Head on over to speakandstandout.com/speaker dash success, and you can book your free speaker success call with me. We'll look at where you are, where you want to go, and how you can use speaking to get there faster and with way less stress. Remember, your story's unique. Let's make it heard. So, till next week, be in demand.